Hello, everyone. We're back again with another virtual kids art class from the Firehouse Art Center. My name's Elaine Waterman, and I go by Miss Elaine, but I'm the executive director at the Firehouse, and the gallery is currently closed. But we are happy to be offering these kids classes on Facebook Live, as well as other classes taught by Mr. Mario on our YouTube channel. So there are lots of different ways to continue learning, continue doing art while we're at home. And we look forward to when we can get back to the gallery and start teaching you guys in person. But until then, we can have fun in our homes and make art with stuff that we have around the house. So it is our last day for Animal Week, and Monday we did our drawings of cats and dogs. And thank you so much, you guys, for sending in your pictures. I loved them. They were awesome. So we did our dogs and we did our cats. And I had a really good time. It was a lot of fun for me. And then on Wednesday, we did our painting class. And we learned a little bit about complementary colors and George Rodriguez, famous artist, from Louisiana, and his series, The Blue Dog. We made our own blue dogs and explored a little bit about color theory and color mixing. And today we are going to do a multimedia sculpture class with salt dough. So we have our salt dough clay faces that we're going to be making today. And we're going to start by making our salt dough together. And this is a cat. And we can make all sorts of variations of dogs and cats based on some of the images that we drew in our class on Monday. So if you remember, we did different kinds of dogs. We did pugs, we did larger dogs, we did dogs with pointy ears, we did furry dogs, we did a bunch of different cats too. So you can make your cat and dog however you want. So this is my cat. And if you were able to find some of the optional supplies, I'm not going to use those today, just in case there are some of you that don't have them ready. But if you do have them ready, it's a lot of fun to add like little things that you find around the house, whether it's found buttons or which you can use for eyes. Or you can put spaghetti as the whiskers. The only thing is, if you are going to bake your salt dough to set it, you don't want to add those until after. So because they might melt in the oven and that would be sad. But if you are going to bake these, I suggest at the end, you can put them into an oven that's warmed up to 250 degrees, and you just kind of leave it there to set for an hour. So you can set the oven timer for an hour, and then, to turn off after an hour, and they can just hang out there. They're not going to get burned at 250. It's just a, slightly warm temperature to just help them set a little bit. As far as why we're doing flat faces like this, so they're like cookies. I ended up not choosing to do a sculpture because sometimes salt dough cracks as the moisture is coming out of it. And the thicker it is, the more it will crack. So that is why I don't use salt dough to do thick sculptures. I use it mostly for the flat ones just to control the cracking. So that is why we're doing these faces. So I'm going to let you guys get your supplies. As I said to some of the people that asked, are we going to mix it together or should we have our salt dough made already? I said to wait, because we're going to mix it together. But the supplies that you'll need are 1 cup of salt, 2 cups of flour, and 1 cup of warm water. So all you need to do right now is get your warm water in your bowl, and we can measure the salt and the flour together. I actually prepared my warm water like 20 minutes before class just so I could be ready. And then by the time I sat down, it was cold. So just go ahead and get your warm water now so it doesn't cool down, and we can measure and mix together. So this makes quite a fair amount of dough. You'll be able to make probably 4 faces with this. If you wanted to cut down your recipe, and this is a lot like cooking, and this is kind of why I love cooking as far as an activity for kids, because there's a lot of math mixed in when you're cooking. So if you only wanted to make half the amount of this recipe, so kids, if you just wanted to make half and not have a big amount left over, which, lean over here, this is all the stuff that I had left over from mine. And if you don't want a lot left over, you can separate the recipe in half. So if you were going to do the math, instead of doing 1 cup of salt, you would do half a cup of salt. Instead of doing 2 cups of flour, you would do 1 cup of flour. And then instead of doing 1 cup of warm water, you would do half a cup of warm water. And that will split the recipe in half, and you won't have as much left over. So hopefully you guys have your warm water in your bowl and you guys are ready to mix with me. I'm going to turn the screen down so you guys can see what I'm mixing. And if you guys just joined, I'm Miss Elaine from the Firehouse Art Center. Thank you so much for coming to class and taking a live stream virtual class with me. You might be watching this later, and if so, hey, from however many hours before. If you're here live, like Annalisa, Erica, Violet, Carrie, and Emma, hey guys, if you have any questions, just put it in the messages and I'll try and answer it. I'm going to turn the screen down. I can still kind of see it when you're sending messages, but it's not as easy. But I will hopefully be able to address any questions live. So hold 1 second, turning it down. And there you see my bowl. Okay, so this is 1 cup of warm water, and we are going to add our other ingredients. If you guys don't know this, my kiddos are actually celiac, and that means that they're gluten-free, so they can't have all-purpose normal flour, but this works with gluten-free flour as well. I was able to go to the store and get some regular flour first. So I'm going to be using the normal all-purpose flour. So you're going to need 1 cup of warm water, which is already in my bowl, and I am pouring 1 cup of salt. So you can either pour it, while holding it, or you can leave your cup flat and try and get exactly 1 cup. Now, if you're wondering what this white thing on my table is, this right here is freezer paper. So it's really great for crafts. And it actually says on the container, great for arts and crafts, which is really funny because that's not what it was created for. It was created for wrapping things to go into your freezer. But it's really great because you can actually cut out designs of freezer paper, iron it to a t-shirt, and then paint around it. And then that's how you can kind of create a design. So it's a really fun thing that you can get just from, the grocery store that you can use to make lots of crafts. And plus, it keeps your table nice and clean and also won't stick to the salt dough. So that's 1 cup of salt in there. Now I'm going to do 2 cups of flour. So here's 1 cup, and I'm adding a 2nd cup. You can't actually see him, but my son Ethan is right next to me. He's come into my room, and I told him that if he comes into my room, he has to go on screen. Oh, now he's leaving. I'm trying to get Ethan to help me teach a class. He is 11 and he is a fantastic artist, and he is a really great teacher as well. So hopefully he'll come and join as a guest teacher someday. So we now have 1 cup of salt, 2 cups of flour and 1 cup of warm water in our bowl, ready to go. I'm actually going to, if you want, you can use a spoon to mix it, but I actually like mixing it straight off with my hands. When I used to teach Discovery Days at the museum, I remember that whenever we would do salt dough, I would always mix it with my hands, and it's a lot. We would mix a lot of dough. And I always had the softest hands after that week. So I'm just getting in there and really smushing it up. And when you smush it up, you can kind of also tell if your salt dough is too dry or too wet. And you can problem solve and adjust by adding a little bit more water or adding a little bit more flour. When you are problem solving and adjusting to solve, whether it's too wet or too dry, be really careful how much you add. Only add a little bit at a time, because if you add too much, you're just going to go down this road of having to add more flour, then maybe having to add more water. And you can always add more. It's harder to take things away. So just add a little bit at a time. Okay, so I'm still mixing it. So I really love art projects where you can get messy. And as you can see, this one's kind of a messy project, which is why I have my butcher paper, my freezer paper on my counter, on my table. Okay. So this is a pretty good consistency. It's not too wet and it's not too dry. And it's forming a really good ball of dough right here, so you can see. And the reason, so one sign of it being too wet is that it'll get stuck all in your fingers. As you can see, it's pulling off most of the dough from my hands. So it's not too wet. And if you have a dough that's too crumbly, then you'll know it's too dry. So this is perfect. Not too wet, not too dry, and we're ready to go. So I'm going to move the bowl away from the desk now, and I'm going to put it to the side so it's not in the way. I'm going to take my measuring cups and put them to the side as well as my recipe, as well as my salt and my flour. So keeping your art surface clean is a really good thing to do as you're making art. So moving the supplies that you've already used so you don't make a mess, and keeping your surface clean. So I'm going to move this butcher paper, this freezer paper, closer so you guys can see. And I'm going to move these guys up here. So we are ready to make our salt dough animals. So I want you guys to take your big ball of dough and put it out on your surface, whether you're using freezer paper, wax paper, or you're just doing it on the table. Flatten it out into a circle using your fingers. If you want, you can use a rolling pin, but make it into a circle that is about the size of a personal pan pizza, or a little bit bigger than your face as an adult. But personal pan pizza, because we are going to split this pizza up into a half, into two. So this is as if you were going to share your piece of pizza with just one person. And you can use anything you want to split it up. You can use a pencil. You can use a plastic knife if you have one. I'm upstairs in my office. Actually, it's upstairs in my bedroom since I don't have an office at home. But I'm just going to use a pencil, and I'm going to split it right in half like this, okay? So if you were to write this as a fraction, it would be, I'm trying to write 1/2 upside down, but I'm just going to turn it around. Okay, so 1/2, 1/2. So 1 out of 2. Okay, this number at the top is the numerator. The number on the bottom is the denominator. So now we have your pizza, and it's split in half. Okay. Now, I want you guys to split one of these halves into 2 halves as well. Okay, so I'm going to take this one and I'm going to split this section in half. Okay. So this is half of this section. But if we want to figure out how much of this is of this whole section, it needs a little bit of multiplication. So we split it into 2s. So it was 1/2 and 1/2. Then I split 1/2 into 2. And we're going to do multiplication by 1/2 times 1/2. So you times 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. And you come up with 1/4. So if I split this in half, this section right here is 1/4 of the total piece of pizza. So now I can share with 3 friends. But this friend is kind of getting a lot more pizza than the other friends. So I am going to actually split this in half as well. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4. I would like to now split this one in half. So a little bit of a lesson about fractions, but it's all going to make a lot of sense when we take this apart and we turn these into animals. So now I have these 2 pieces split in half, and I can figure out that 1/2 of 1/4, so 1/2 of 1/4, I times 1 by 1, which is 1. Then 2 times 4 equals 8. So this piece right here is 1/8 of the whole pizza. So now for this one, I'm going to separate this into thirds. So if you wanted to know, what I'm doing is, this is the dog, and this is the cat. Actually, no, that's switched. This is the cat, and this is the dog. Okay, so I am splitting 1/4 into thirds. So this piece is 1/4 into thirds. So I have 1 times 1 equals 1. And then 3 times 4 equals 12. So this piece right here is 1/12 of the whole pizza pie. So if I were to cut all of these into thirds, you will see that there are 12 pieces. Okay, so now I'm going to take this half. You're not actually going to do anything with this half of the pizza right now, because all I need to make my 2 animals are right here. If you want, you can smush the half of the pizza that we're not using into a ball and put it to the side. If you don't want it to dry out, put it in a plastic bag. Okay, now I'm going to take this one, which is separated into thirds, and move it to the side because that's the cat. Let's make our dog first. So I'm going to put my sample right next to me. Here's Mr. Dog. I'm going to take these 2 pieces. They're equal pieces. They're 1/4 of the pizza pie we just made, and I'm going to roll them into a ball. So just roll them into a ball and flatten them like a pancake. So try and get the edges so that they are nice and round, just like that. Okay, now I'm going to take the other piece and I am going to roll it into a ball. Just like this. I'm going to separate this ball in half just by pinching. Just like this. So now I have these two balls right here. I'm going to separate, I'm going to keep this one, put it to the side. This is going to make his ears, his nose, and his tongue. This is going to make his snout. So I'm going to make a little pancake. And actually this is, and I'm going to put it right here. So to get it to stick, you're going to want a little bit of water on your fingers. Ethan, can you get me a little cup of water, please? Ethan's still here, so he's going to help me. Ethan, can you get me a cup of water, please?
From where?
The sink.
Well, where's the cup?
By the sink. So you want to get your fingers a little bit wet, and you're going to put some wet, you're going to wet this area right here, which is going to be underneath his snout, and we're going to put it like this. But I'm waiting for my helper. While I'm waiting for my helper, I'm going to take this ball and I'm going to separate this in half as well. Okay, thank you, sir. So now I've got my cup. I'm going to take my fingers. All I'm doing is I just dip it into the water, tap it a little bit so it's not too wet, and I add it to my salt dough like this, and I add it to the underside of my salt dough like that. I stick it on, and with my wet fingers, I kind of press the edges down. Just like that. Okay. So now I have my pug's face and I have my pug's snout. I am going to take this ball and I'm going to separate it in half because these are going to be his ears. Now, a pug's ears are triangular. So all you do is pinch and press until you come up with a triangle shape like this. You're going to wet your fingers again and pressing the areas down where his ears are going to go. You're going to wet the back of his ear and you're going to add it just like that. Then the other one, you're going to do the same thing. So make a triangle shape. Just like that. Wet your fingers. Wet the back. And add your triangular ear just like this. Awesome. Now you might want to press it down a little bit so that you're sure it sticks. And we're going to go ahead and give him his eyes. So I said I wanted to use tools that we have around the house. So unless you guys have clay shaping tools at home, you're going to need to find some cool things that you can just use to make eyes. If you want, you could use the back end of your eraser for your pencil. You could find things that look like this or a straw, anything like that. And you're just going to press into the clay. Don't press all the way through, but just press into the clay and make little indentations for where his eyes are, okay? So I'm going to lift mine up so you guys can see. And this is my Mr. Sketchy crayon thing that I love because it rolls up and it rolls down and your crayons don't break. And even if your dog wants to eat them, they don't get to eat the crayon because they just end up eating the plastic. But anyway, so it rolls up, it rolls down, and I used it to make the eyeball, just like that. Okay, now we're gonna make his nose and his tongue. So first we're gonna make his nose. You're gonna pinch just a little bit off of the remaining clay that you have for this animal, and you can make a little triangle nose or an oval nose. It's totally up to you. I'm gonna make one that's more of a triangle. Once again, you just wet your fingers and you wet the area that you're gonna add the nose. You're gonna wet the back end of the nose, and you are going to smush it on. So you want to make sure that you wet it and that you're really attaching it to your salt dough so that when it dries, it doesn't just fall off. Okay, there is his nose. And now I'm going to make his mouth. And if you remember from our drawing class, it's just a J. Oh, actually, this is a pug. So it's a straight line down. And then him, for the pugs, we were doing a little frowny face, which was like a little mountain shape. Now, if you look, you'll see that I'm using the pencil point, and I'm not drawing it. I'm actually like just making dots, a row of dots. If you were to draw in the clay, you would be pushing it as you're drawing it. So you'll see like this, when I draw in it, it pushes it and it makes the line kind of jagged. With this, if you use this dotting motion, you're just making a mark in the clay and you're not pushing it to the edge, okay? So there is his frowny face, his nose, his eyes, and his triangle ears. And all I need to do now is add his tongue. So I'm going to pinch off a little bit of his tongue. And you don't end up using all of it. You still have a little bit left. And you can just make an oval shape. I'm going to wet this area. Another thing that you can do is you can make like little hatch marks where you're going to attach it. And that is just called scoring the clay. And you can do it on this side as well. And that helps it with attaching. Oh, that one's cute because his tongue is kind of sticking out. Okay, so, and that is how we make our pug. Ta-da! And that's our little dog face for today. Okay, so I'm going to put him to the side. And remember, if you want to fire your animal, you can fire it as if you were firing clay inside your home oven on a tray, and get your parents to help you with this because, you know, ovens are no joke. They're nothing to play with. So get your parents to set it up 250 degrees. So it's not that hot. And it's only for an hour, and it's just a light bake, and you basically bake these like cookies. As I was telling my kiddos, you don't want to eat these cookies because, as you know from the mixture, there's a lot of salt in that, and it actually tastes really gross. I've seen lots of kids eat it, though. But you don't want to eat this clay. It might make you sick. So we're going to take this, and remember we had it split into thirds, so I'm going to split it into thirds. These ended up being, each of these pieces was 1/12 of our whole pizza. Okay, so I'm going to roll each of these thirds into a ball. It got a little dry sitting to the side, so that's why I'm adding water as I'm rolling into a ball. So this is a lot of fun. I love playing with tactile and three-dimensional art and sculpture and clay. Just kind of doing this kind of art and creating is very soothing to me. I really like getting into the materials and just being able to hold it in my hands and kind of make a mess. So maybe you're the same. So I have 1, 2, and this is going to be my third. adding just a little bit of water. So when you see your clay or your salt dough get this wrinkly look where it looks like elephant skin, it just needs a little bit of water because it's been sitting out and drying. So I'm going to roll it into a ball, keep rolling it. Okay. So now I have 3 balls. I'm going to take one of them and I'm going to take this one. I'm going to flatten it out like a pancake. We're using my fingers. If you want, you can use a rolling pin, but just trying to use supplies that you might have at home. You might not have a rolling pin that you want to use for salt dough because you use it to like actually make real cookies. So you can just use your fingers. And this is going to be my cat's face. So I'm going to put my cat right here so you guys can see it. And I'm just going to flatten out any wrinkles or any weird jagged edges, just like that. Okay. Now, this dough right here, I'm going to pinch off a little bit, just like that. And these are going to be his ears. Wetting my fingers, I'm going to shape the dough into pointy triangles, just like that. I'm going to wet the area where the ear goes and wet the area on the back of the ear. I'm going to score it if you want to. Scoring it just kind of helps the salt dough have more to grab onto. And it's going to increase your chances of having the pieces stick. And I'm going to press it on like this. Using my finger, wet my finger and smooth it on so that it's fully connected. Now, if you don't fully smooth it on, you have a chance of it cracking and falling off. Now, if you look at mine, I made this really quickly last night, and you'll see there's a little crack right there. So I didn't fire these either, so that could also be the reason. Okay, now I have this other piece I'm going to make into another triangle for his ear. I'm going to wet the area where his ear goes, wet the area behind, and score it by making little hashtags. So if you can't see what I mean by scoring, I'm going to move this so you guys can see, because that's it's a good technique for making any kind of sculpture. So if you see right here, I wet this area with my finger, and then I made little hashtags or little crisscross marks, tic-tac-toe marks, whatever you want to call it, right there. And that's where his ear is going to go. And I'm going to do it on the ear as well. So I'm going to add a little water to the back. I'm going to make those hashtag marks. And I'm going to stick that right there too. Okay, so it just gives the salt dough more surface to grab on. Wetting my finger, I'm smoothing it on. And hopefully I am increasing the chances of it sticking and decreasing the chance of it cracking. Okay, now I have his ears. I need to add his eyes. Now I did the eyes for the cat different than I did for the dog. So this is called reductive. So you're actually removing or taking away something. For the eyes for this one, I'm calling it, it's called additive, and you're actually adding something. So this one, you're adding 2 circles for eyes. So I'm going to pinch a little bit off of my ball of clay. And I'm going to make another little ball, and I'm going to split this in half because I want to have equal sizes for my eyes. So I'm just going to kind of correct it and see. Those look like they're the same size, so that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to smush them like little mini pancakes. Put one to the side and smush this one. Okay, so now I've got 2 little mini eyeball pancakes. I'm going to wet my fingers, wet the area where the eyes are going to go. I'm going to wet the back of where the eyes of the eyeball score the eyeball and where it goes, and press it on. So those eyeballs are really huge. Okay, so wet, wet, score, score, press, and attach. So this cat is super surprised about something. I'm going to give him a nose. It's a teeny weeny little oval. That's a really small area. I don't know if I'm going to be able to score that. So I'm just going to wet it and press it in. And that is my cat with his eyes. So now if you have spaghetti, the noodles, you can take a little bit and press it in here and you'll get the impression of his whiskers, and then you can just glue them on after it's baked. Or if you're not going to bake it, you can just press them into there. Since I don't have spaghetti, I'm going to just make a line for his whiskers. And once again, I'm using that kind of like dotting motion. I'm not drawing, I'm just dotting with my pencil to make his whiskers. And I'm going to do it on this side, dot, 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 dot. And again, dot, dot, dot. So it's like a connected dotted line. So it's not like a dot and then a dot and a dot. It's just dotting over and over. So pressing the tool into the clay to make the line and not using the tool to draw the line. Okay, so those are his whiskers. I want to put the highlight, or I guess it could be his pupil. I'm just going to take the pencil and make a little hole. Just like that. And I'm going to do the same thing that we did for our drawings. It's going to be a J. I'm going to dot, dot, dot. A J. And then a backwards J. Ends up looking like an anchor. And that is our cat. If you want to add anything like the inside of his ears, you can dot those little lines. Just like that. And the cat is done. So I'm going to move it up close so you guys can see. And as you can see, the freezer paper is really great because it doesn't stick. And there's my cat. And here is my dog. So if you want to make different kinds of dogs, you can. And that's why it's always good to have extra clay. I actually have a little bit of extra right here, but as I remember, the cats and the dogs. So you can make all sorts of different dog faces. In fact, since I have extra clay, we can make one right now. As I said, I'm just going to add a little bit of water because it's been sitting to the side and gets a little dry. I'm going to move this. So if you have extra dough, make sure, if you're not going to use it right now, make sure that you put it in a plastic bag so it doesn't dry out. This one, I had it rolled into a ball and I'm going to flatten it out. And I'm not going to make it into a pancake round. I'm going to make it into an oval pancake. Okay, so I'm wetting my fingers just so the clay doesn't stick to my fingers so much for the dough. And I'm going to make an oval. It's going to be right there. So I don't know what kind of dog I'm going to make. I think maybe I'll make this dog right here. So that guy. Okay. So I'm going to move my cat so I have space for my dog. Put him right here. Flatten him out a little and get a little bit more clay. Gonna pinch some off. And I'm going to make another oval. This one's going to be a little smaller. So just using my fingers to shape the oval. So if I want to smooth it, I can wet my fingers and smooth it. Just like that. I'm going to go back to my oval, wet the area on the bottom where his nose is going to go, score it with the hashtag lines. Then come back, wet my nose, score it on the back, and press it on. So wet fingers, and you can kind of smush it onto the dog, just like that. And then I'm going to add ears. So I'm going to pinch off some clay. And if you look, these ears are kind of long ovals. So I'm going to add them to the side. So score, score, press and attach. Then for the next one, try to get them to be even, but it's okay if they're not exact. And wet fingers. You can score it with a pencil or your fingernail and attach. Smooth it on. And if you want, you can add his nose. Now add his nose more to the top for this one. Press and attach. And then you can draw his eyes. And this one, you can do the J, dot, dot, dot. And backwards J. And don't forget his tongue. And there you go. That is a completely different looking dog. Let's give him some eyebrows. There you go. And that is just a quick, different kind of dog to make with your extra clay. And there he is. So hopefully you guys had fun. I had a lot of fun and my hands are super messy now. Make sure you wash your hands and don't rub your hands as you're walking to the sink, because if this rubs off, it makes a big mess. I'm going to turn my screen up, trying not to touch too much. So I hope you guys had a good time. I definitely did. Remember, if you want to bake these, get your parent to set the oven at 250, so 250 degrees. Don't try and do it yourself. It is hot. For a person, it's not that hot for cookies, but it is hot and will burn you. So make sure you ask a parent to help you or an adult to help you. 250 degrees for an hour on a tray, and they should be good to go. If you have any extra dough that you have left over and you're not going to use right now, make sure you put it into a bag so it doesn't dry out and you can keep having fun with it. Once these are dry, you can paint them. You can paint them with any kind of paint. Acrylic paint works best, but watercolor will color it as well. If it just will color it really lightly, so it'll look more like a stain than kind of painting it on top, because the watercolor will be more absorbed. So I'm going to put this in a bag so I can mess around with it later. Maybe we'll make some stuff and bake it, and I don't know. We're going to have some fun with it. But I hope you guys had a good time. If you made any animal faces or any kinds of sculptures, definitely send me a picture. I would love to see them. Once again, My name's Miss Elaine. I'm from the Firehouse Art Center. We are currently closed, but we are really looking forward to when we can see your smiling faces again and when we can start offering classes. Keep an eye out on our Facebook page. We're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff coming up. We have an online exhibition. Since we can't invite anyone into the gallery just yet to look at the work on our walls, we have invited people to apply for an online exhibition that is going to open on second Friday. So it's going to be a virtual exhibition opening second Friday. So keep an eye for that. It's going to be local artists, and you can support your local artist community and get to know the artists that live nearby you. So that's one thing that we're doing. Check out the Facebook page for our creative bingo as well. I'm offering prizes for straight across, straight down, diagonals, as well as full blackout. You get a little art kit if you do the full blackout, and you get stickers if you do straight down, straight across, or diagonal. Email me at the Firehouse, so it's elaine@firehouseart.org when you finish, and I will figure out some way to get that art stuff or a sticker to you. So that's the last thing, I think. There might be other stuff coming up. But, next week is mystical and mythological creatures. So we're going to follow the same pattern that we did this week. So on Monday, it's going to be drawing. We're going to be drawing unicorns. On Wednesday, we're going to be painting and printing mermaids. So for Monday, you don't really need that many supplies. You just need paper and pencil, coloring tools. For Wednesday, you'll need the styrofoam tray, which you can get either from egg cartons, from buying stuff at the grocery, or you can get from takeout containers. But if you have metallic paints, whether they're metallic watercolors or metallic tempera or even metallic acrylic, those are the coolest to use for printing mermaids. So try and get some of those. And then Friday, we are going to be doing coffee filter multimedia fairies. So we're going to be making fairy wings. So that's what we have on tap for next week. Check it out. firehouseart.org to get to our website, or just click on our Facebook page. I'm posting all our videos to the YouTube channel. And if you go there, you'll see all our other offerings. Mr. Mario is also teaching classes. He has classes in English and in Spanish, so that's really great for our Spanish-speaking community. And I think that's it. So thank you so much for coming to the virtual art class. It's Firehouse Art Center at home. And I will see you next week. Have a great weekend. Keep creating and definitely share what you've made. I will see you next week. Bye.